Hey there, friends. Let's talk about something that holds too many of us back. Approval, that ever elusive stamp of validation from people who may or may not truly see us. We twist ourselves into pretzels, filtering our words, our choices, and even our dreams through the lens of, will they like this? Will they accept me? But here's the truth. You don't need their approval. You need your own courage. Hey there, friends. Before we dive in, I'd love to ask you for a quick favor. If this message resonates with you, if it sparks something in your heart or gives you a little courage boost, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you haven't already, subscribing is a great way to stay connected and keep these conversations going. And you know that little bell icon? Give it a tap so you never miss a moment. That way, we can keep showing up together, because growth, courage, and wholehearted living, they're so much better when we walk that path side by side. And if you know someone who might need a reminder that they are worthy, brave, and more than enough, share this with them. You never know how a simple message can change someone's day. Thanks for being here. Now, let's get started. Seeking approval is one of those sneaky traps that often disguises itself as connection. We think if they like me, I'll belong, but here's the catch. Approval and belonging are not the same thing. Approval is conditional. It says, I'll accept you if you meet my expectations. If you say the right things, act the right way, and fit into the mold I've created, then you're worthy. But belonging doesn't ask you to change. It doesn't demand a polished, perfected version of yourself. Belonging is what happens when you show up as your authentic self, the messy, brave, imperfect you, and people say, you're enough just as you are. The pursuit of approval is exhausting. It keeps us constantly scanning the room, wondering, what do they think of me? Am I too much, not enough? We shape-shift, toning down our voices, adjusting our laughter, and second-guessing our opinions. We say yes when we mean no, laugh when we're not amused, and shrink when we were meant to stand tall. And the worst part, even if we get the approval we so desperately seek, it doesn't fill us. It's like drinking salt water when we're thirsty. It only leaves us craving more. And why? Because approval is external. It's fleeting. It relies on the moods, opinions, and judgments of others, none of which we can control. One day, you're celebrated, the next, you're criticized. And if your worth is tethered to that roller coaster, your self-esteem will rise and fall with it. That's no way to live. The truth is, people-pleasing might earn you temporary acceptance, but it won't give you true belonging. Because how can anyone fully accept you if you're not being fully yourself? If you're constantly editing and censoring, then the version of you they're approving isn't real. It's a carefully crafted facade. And nothing feels lonelier than standing in a room full of people who like the mask you wear, not the soul beneath it. Real belonging begins when you decide to stop hustling for approval. It starts when you stand firmly in your own truth and say, this is who I am. These are my values. This is my voice. Some people will resonate with that. Others won't. And that's okay. Not everyone is meant to walk alongside you. When you let go of the need for approval, you free yourself to find the ones who genuinely see you, the people who value you for your heart, your courage, and your authenticity. It's not easy. Releasing the desire for approval means risking rejection. It means hearing no and still believing in your yes. It means acknowledging the sting of disapproval without letting it define your worth. But the alternative, living a life curated for others, a life where your choices are dictated by fear instead of freedom, and that's a far greater loss than any rejection could ever be. So if you've been caught in the approval trap, I want you to know this. You are not here to be liked by everyone. You're not here to be the most agreeable, the most admired, or the most applauded. You are here to be yourself, wildly, unapologetically, bravely, yourself. Because true belonging, the kind that nourishes your soul, can only exist when you stop seeking approval and start standing in your own power. It's so easy to fall into the trap of believing that other people get to decide how valuable we are. From the time we're young, we're conditioned to seek validation from teachers, parents, peers, bosses, and even strangers on the internet. Every gold star, every compliment, every approving nod feels like proof that we're good enough. And every criticism, rejection, or dismissive glance, that feels like evidence that we're not. But here's the truth. It's often hard to swallow. No one else gets to define your worth. Not your family, not your friends, not your boss, not the people who scroll past your life on social media. Your worth isn't up for debate, negotiation, or external measurement. It simply exists, unwavering and constant. And the moment you let someone else's opinion convince you otherwise, you've handed them power that was never theirs to hold. Think about how exhausting that is. When we rely on others to validate us, we give them control over how we feel about ourselves. We become like puppets, our emotions jerking up and down based on someone's approval or disapproval. And the scariest part, people's opinions are often based on their own fears, insecurities, and biases. They may judge you not because you lack worth, but because your courage reminds them of what they're too afraid to do. Let's be honest, we've all been there. Maybe you've poured your heart into something only to have it met with criticism or indifference. Maybe you've spoken your truth and instead of support, you were met with judgment. And in that moment, it's so tempting to believe that the voices of others are louder and more valid than your own. But their opinions, they are just noise. And noise does not determine your value. Your worth has nothing to do with how many people approve of you. It's not found in job titles, awards, or followers. It's not tied to the size of your house, the number on the scale, or the compliments you receive. Your worth is intrinsic. It's woven into your very existence. You are valuable because you are here, because you breathe, love, and contribute in ways that may never be measured but will always matter. And let me be clear, this doesn't mean we shouldn't care about feedback or growth. Constructive criticism can be a gift, and learning from others is part of what makes us human. But there's a difference between accepting feedback and internalizing it as a reflection of your worth. Feedback says, here's how you can grow, but your worth, that never changes. It's also important to recognize that people will project their own insecurities onto you. Someone may try to tear you down because they're struggling to feel good about themselves. They may reject your ideas not because they lack merit, but because embracing them would force them to question their own beliefs. That has nothing to do with your value. Other people's actions and words are a reflection of their inner world, not yours. So what happens when you stop giving others the authority to define your worth? You stand taller. You speak more boldly. You take up space without apology. You start making choices based on what feels right for you, not what will earn you approval. You trust your intuition, knowing that the voice within you is far wiser than the voices outside. And yes, not everyone will understand this version of you. Some people may pull away when you no longer seek their validation. Others may criticize you simply because your confidence makes them uncomfortable. But the people who matter, the ones who see you, love you, and celebrate you, they will cheer you on. Because when you own your worth, you give others permission to do the same. At the end of the day, the relationship you have with yourself is the one that shapes everything else. When you stand in your worth, you create a life rooted in self-respect. You stop over-explaining, over-apologizing, and over-performing. You become less afraid of rejection because you know that the loss of someone's approval is never the loss of your value. So the next time you find yourself questioning your worth, remember this: no one else gets to decide how valuable you are. That power belongs to you. And when you claim it, you become unstoppable. Fear of judgment is one of the most powerful forces that can stand between us and the life we're meant to live. It sneaks into our minds, whispering all the worst case scenarios. What if they think I'm foolish? What if I fail and everyone sees? What if they talk about me behind my back? That fear can feel so real, so overwhelming, that it convinces us to stay small, to keep our ideas tucked away, our voices quiet, and our dreams safely out of reach. But here's the truth. Fear of judgment is a dream killer. It convinces us that the opinions of others matter more than our own desires. It plants the belief that embarrassment is unbearable, that failure is unforgivable, and that we are only as good as the approval we receive. And yet, the very people we fear judgment from are often not thinking about us nearly as much as we think they are. That's the paradox. We spend so much time worrying about what others might say or think, assuming they're fixated on our every move. But in reality, most people are too busy worrying about their own lives to give ours more than a passing thought. And even when they do judge, that judgment is often a reflection of their own insecurities. Think about it. How often do people criticize others, not because something is truly wrong, but because seeing someone else take a risk makes them uncomfortable? When you step into your courage, it reminds others of the ways they've held themselves back. And sometimes, instead of confronting that discomfort, they project it onto you. Their judgment has nothing to do with your worth or your dreams. It's about their own fear. But fear of judgment doesn't just hold us back from taking bold action. It also convinces us to water down our ambitions. Maybe we set smaller goals because they seem safer. Maybe we choose careers that others approve of instead of the ones that ignite our souls. Maybe we stay in situations that no longer serve us because walking away would mean facing questions and opinions we're not ready to deal with. And here's where it gets even trickier. Sometimes we don't even realize we're holding ourselves back. We tell ourselves we're being practical or realistic. We say things like, now's not the right time, or I'll try once I have more experience. But if we dig a little deeper, we often find that what's really stopping us isn't practicality, it's fear. Fear that if we try and fail, people will laugh. Fear that if we stand out, we'll be criticized. Fear that if we follow our hearts, we'll be judged for it. But let me ask you this. Who gets to decide what's worthy of pursuit? Who gets to say what success looks like? The answer is you, only you. Other people's opinions may be loud, but they are not the truth. The truth is found in your passion, your calling, and that little voice inside that says, this is what I'm meant to do. And yes, there will be judgment. That's part of the deal when you choose to live authentically. Some people may question your choices. Others may criticize you simply because you dared to do what they wouldn't. But judgment is not proof that you're on the wrong path. In fact, it's often a sign that you're doing something brave. Every person who has ever accomplished something remarkable has faced judgment. Every artist, entrepreneur, activist, or leader who dared to challenge the status quo has heard the whispers of doubt and criticism, but they kept going. Not because they were fearless, but because they understood that fear is a companion on the road to greatness. They chose to listen to their purpose instead of their fear. So what if, instead of fearing judgment, you embraced it as evidence that you're stepping out of your comfort zone? What if you saw it as a natural part of growth, a sign that you're living boldly instead of merely existing? And remember, the harshest judgments often come from within, that inner critic, the one that tells you you're not good enough, not smart enough, not ready enough, can be louder than anything anyone else could say. But just because it's loud doesn't mean it's right. You are not your worst thoughts. You are the brave soul daring to try, to grow, to create. And that is worth celebrating. At the end of your life, the opinions of others won't matter. What will matter is whether you followed your own heart, whether you chased the dreams that lit you up inside, whether you showed up fully even when it was terrifying. So Don't let the fear of judgment be the reason you shrink. Let it be the reason you rise, because the people who judge you will forget. But the version of you who never tried, that's the one who will remember. And you deserve so much more than a life dictated by fear. You deserve a life of boldness, authenticity, and joy. And the only permission you need to live it is your own. When you choose to live authentically, not everyone will understand. That's just the way it is. Some people will celebrate your growth and cheer you on every step of the way, while others might criticize, question, or even distance themselves. It's painful, isn't it? The idea that stepping into your truth might mean losing people you care about. But the truth is, the right people will support you, and the wrong ones simply don't matter. It's human nature to crave connection. We are wired for belonging. But what we often forget is that true belonging has nothing to do with pleasing others or molding ourselves into versions we think will be accepted. It's not about earning approval. It's about being seen and loved for who we truly are. And the hard part, not everyone is capable of offering that kind of love and acceptance. When you start living more authentically, you disrupt the status quo. You're no longer the predictable version of yourself that others have grown comfortable with. Maybe you've always been the people pleaser, the one who keeps the peace, or the one who follows the path others laid out for you. But when you decide to break free from those roles and stand in your truth, it can make people uncomfortable. It's not because you've done something wrong. It's because your courage reminds them of their own fears. Some people may project their insecurities onto you. They might say things like, you've changed, or you're being selfish, when what they really mean is, I'm afraid of losing the version of you I was comfortable with. Others might dismiss your dreams or mock your choices because your bravery challenges their unwillingness to face their own desires. But that's not your burden to carry. It's also important to remember that the people who criticize you are often speaking from their own wounds. Maybe they were taught to suppress their own dreams. Maybe they never received the support they needed. And now the idea of someone else boldly pursuing their goals feels like salt in an old wound. It's not about you, it's about them. And while it's natural to want to explain yourself, to prove your worth, or to convince them to understand, you don't have to, because the right people, they won't need convincing. They'll see your courage and admire it. They'll celebrate your growth, even when it means you're stepping into unfamiliar territory. They'll remind you who you are on the days you forget, and they won't keep score. They'll cheer for you simply because they love you. These are the people who create space for your joy, your ambition, and your vulnerability. And when you find those people, hold on to them. But to find them, you have to be willing to let go of the ones who don't belong on your journey. That's hard. Sometimes we cling to relationships out of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of disappointing others, fear of what they might say. But holding on to people who cannot celebrate your growth will only weigh you down. And the longer you carry the weight of others' expectations, the more exhausted you'll become. And let's be clear, letting go doesn't always mean cutting people out of your life. It often means releasing the need for their approval. It means accepting that their inability to support you is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their own limitations. You can love people from a distance. You can wish them well without shrinking yourself to fit into their idea of who you should be. And something beautiful happens when you stop seeking validation from the wrong people. The right ones show up. They might be people you've known for years who suddenly see your light and say, I've been waiting for you to shine. Or they might be brand new souls who recognize your spirit and feel drawn to your authenticity. Either way, you'll know them by how you feel when you're around them, safe, seen, and celebrated. But none of that can happen if you're constantly trying to win over people who were never meant to understand your path. When you release the fear of losing people who can't meet you where you are, You gain the freedom to embrace those who can. And isn't that what we all deserve? To be surrounded by people who love us, not for who we were, but for who we are becoming. So if you're standing at that crossroads right now, if you're afraid of what others will think, afraid of losing relationships, afraid of the judgment that might come, remember this: the right people will support you. The wrong ones don't matter. And when you find those people, you'll know, because they won't ask you to shrink. They won't withhold their love until you meet some unspoken standard. They'll stand beside you no matter how many times you stumble. They'll celebrate your victories as if they were their own. And most importantly, they'll remind you, even on your hardest days, that you are worthy, you are loved, and you are enough. That's what true support looks like. And that's what you deserve. There's a moment in life when we realize that no matter how hard we try, we will never please everyone. We chase approval like it's a prize, thinking that once we earn enough applause, we'll finally feel whole. But the truth is that kind of approval is fleeting, it's conditional. It's like trying to fill an endless well with a bucket that has a hole in the bottom. No matter how much validation we collect, it never feels like enough. And that's because it's not meant to be. The approval we truly seek, the kind that brings peace and lasting confidence, doesn't come from others. It comes from within. The only approval you need is your own. But let's be honest, that's easier said than done. Most of us have spent years, even decades, learning to measure our worth through the eyes of others. Maybe it started in childhood when we were praised for being good and scolded when we weren't. Maybe it continued through school, where grades and awards became markers of our value. And in adulthood, it can look like chasing promotions, accumulating likes on social media, or molding ourselves into versions that are more palatable to those around us. We become experts at reading the room, adjusting our words, and tempering our opinions. We smile when we don't mean it. We nod when we disagree. We laugh at jokes that aren't funny. And why? Because deep down, we believe that approval is safety. It's protection from rejection. It's a guarantee that we belong. But the problem is, when we rely on others to approve of us, we give them power that was never meant to be theirs. We start outsourcing our sense of self-worth to people who may never truly understand us. And even if they do approve, it doesn't last. Approval is fickle. People's opinions change, sometimes on a whim, sometimes without reason. And if our self-worth is tied to that ever-shifting tide, we will forever live at the mercy of others' perceptions. But what if you didn't need their validation? What if the voice inside you was the loudest one? Imagine waking up in the morning and knowing that the choices you make are aligned with your own values, not someone else's expectations. Imagine speaking your truth without rehearsing how it might be received. Imagine pursuing your goals simply because they set your soul on fire, not because they'll earn you applause. That's what it means to approve of yourself. It means standing in your own truth, even when it makes others uncomfortable. It means making decisions that honor your authentic self, even if they disappoint people who wanted you to stay small. It means refusing to shrink yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. And let's be clear, this doesn't mean you'll never care what others think. We're human, and the desire for connection is woven into our very being. Feedback and perspective from people we trust can be valuable, but there's a difference between considering others' opinions and being controlled by them. When you approve of yourself, you become your own anchor. You can listen to others without losing yourself. But how do you get there? How do you cultivate that kind of self-approval? It starts with paying attention to the way you speak to yourself. For so many of us, the inner dialogue we carry is harsh and unforgiving. We say things to ourselves that we would never say to a friend. You're not good enough. You always mess things up. Who do you think you are? And every time we do, we chip away at our own self-trust. But what if you started talking to yourself like someone you love? What if you replaced criticism with compassion? What if you celebrated your progress instead of fixating on your perceived failures? Approving of yourself isn't about pretending to be perfect. It's about accepting your imperfections and knowing that they don't diminish your worth. And then it's about making choices from that place of self-acceptance. It's about asking yourself, what do I want instead of what will they think? It's about pursuing goals that matter to you, even if they don't make sense to others. It's about walking away from situations that drain your spirit, knowing that your peace is more valuable than their approval. Yes, some people may judge you, others may misunderstand your choices, but that's not your burden to carry. You are not responsible for managing how others perceive you. You are responsible for staying true to yourself. And here's the beautiful thing. When you approve of yourself, you attract the right people. People who celebrate your authenticity, people who respect your boundaries, people who admire your courage to live unapologetically. But even if no one else approves, you'll be okay. Because the person whose opinion matters most, the one who lives with your choices, your regrets, your triumphs, is you. So the next time you find yourself searching for approval, pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, do I approve of me? If the answer is yes, that's all you need. If the answer is no, then that's where your work begins, not in winning others over, but in learning to stand firmly in your own self-worth. Because at the end of the day, the world doesn't need a version of you that's carefully curated for approval. It needs the real you, the bold you, the imperfect, authentic, radiant you. And that version deserves your approval more than anyone else's ever could. Friends, let's make a commitment today to stop handing our power over to people who were never meant to hold it. To stop shrinking ourselves to fit someone else's mold, to stop waiting for permission to be who we already are. You don't need their approval, you never did. You need your courage, your voice, and your truth. That's more than enough. Now go out there and live boldly. The world needs you, not a watered down, approved version of you, just you. You got this.